Hi, this is David Mastio, California editor for the Center Square, and this is California in Focus. As always, I'm joined by Kenneth Schrupp, a California reporter for the Center Square. Today we're talking about Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to move ahead with installing $1.9 billion worth of electric car chargers around the state. Kenneth, tell me about the plan.
Governor Newsom is pushing ahead with a $1.9 billion program to build electric charging networks across the state. They want to build 40,000 chargers, largely along the interstate, and mostly for heavy vehicles like buses and trucks, but also for underserved communities where electric vehicle adoption rates have been much lower.
You mentioned along interstates. Where else will these chargers be installed? Can you apply to get one maybe in your apartment?
No, these are all going to be public chargers that will be available to anyone. So they'll be in places like gas stations. You would also see these in more underserved, quote unquote, underserved communities within cities.
And you said electric vehicles haven't been adopted there much. So the plan is to put the electric vehicle charging stations where the electric vehicles are not?
Right. The idea is that uptake is lower because of questions about charging. If you're a renter, or you live in an apartment building, it is harder to charge your car if you don't have somewhere to plug it in overnight. This would make it a lot easier for those people to charge up during the day somewhere.
Your reporting says that the chargers will be slow and may even be obsolete before they're installed. Is that right?
Yeah, we see that the electric charging infrastructure, like the type of charging speed available and the battery technology, rapidly change every couple of years. So if we do lock ourselves in to the current charging standard, we will be significantly behind whatever has been developed in the next few years. For reference, let's take a look at national data on the fast chargers that we have had in our country since the end of 2019. In the last quarter of 2019, over half of the entire country's 4,000 public fast chargers put out less than 50 kilowatts. 2 years later, the plurality of our 10,000 fast chargers put out between 150 and 249 kilowatts. So that's 3 to 5 times faster at charging. By the end of 2023, almost half the nation's 24,000 chargers put out between 250 and 349 kilowatts. With the next generation of chargers, those putting out 350 kilowatts or more, growing 39% over the previous quarter. What that's showing us is that we have rapid, huge generational shifts and technology occurring in a very short amount of time. So if we do stick ourselves with an older, slower standard, most of these will be obsolete within a couple of years.
And this comes at a time when sales of electric vehicles are slowing down. Why is that?
People are finding a lot of issues with EVs. Cost might be a little bit of an issue, but that doesn't really work out once you consider California's subsidies. California EV sales fell 10% in the last quarter of 2023 compared to the previous quarter, and then 3% in that quarter over the quarter before that, despite rising steadily in all the years before. Subsidies bring the new cost of a Tesla for qualifying Californians under $20,000 for some people. So it's hard to really make the argument that affordability is what's keeping people from buying electric cars. Given that Americans do pay, of course, an average of $47,000 for a new car. Also keep in mind that gas prices in California are about $4.62 a gallon compared to $3.08 nationwide. So you think that if affordability were the biggest concern, you would see people moving into electric cars, but that's not happening. What we do find is that Consumer Reports had a study finding that EVs have 79% more reliability problems than their gas-powered competitors, and that 21% of public EV chargers just don't function due to broken screens, broken connectors, or like not even being able to connect to the internet to be able to properly charge people for their time.
And the cars don't seem to go as far as the manufacturers originally said. Tesla and other manufacturers have walked back their range specifications by about 10% in recent months. In other reporting I've done, I found that it's debatable whether the EVs have the environmental benefits that have been touted. It's debatable whether the carbon footprint of electric vehicles is actually smaller than their internal combustion competitors. One of the reasons is that the battery supply chain, about 60% of it runs through China, which is one of the only countries in the world that is still building coal-fired power plants. So when your batteries are built, they're built with coal electricity, and it takes a lot of electricity to build an electric battery, apparently. I haven't talked to you yet about this angle, but there's a question of what we do with the used batteries once they need to be disposed of. Right now, we're disposing of previous generations of standard car batteries, the lead nickel car batteries. Federal trade data says we export most of those to Mexico, where environmental and recycling standards are lower. So one of the things that I want you to look into is, as California ramps up its use of electric vehicles, what's happening to the new electric batteries? Are they following the same pattern as old generations of electric batteries and being exported to Mexico, or what are we doing with the old batteries?
We do throw a lot of them away. That is true. But there are startups that are finding and reconditioning these batteries to serve as grid scale storage. What they'll do is they'll grab tons and tons of these packs, and you can sell them to municipalities that want to store some wind and solar energy they can buy really cheaply during the middle of the day. So if you can get these pretty cheap battery packs that have already depreciated and cost a lot, you can just hook them up to the grid. We have so much solar that energy in California, that energy that you buy in the middle of the day is essentially free because they don't have anywhere to offload it. They need you to take as much of it as possible, or it's just going to be wasted. So that's one possible solution that we have, but that's not really always the case. We do end up just throwing a lot of them away.
I'm David Mastio with the Center Square, and we've been talking with Kenneth Schrutt, California reporter for the Center Square. You can read his work at thecentersquare.com. Thank you for listening to California in Focus, and please subscribe to our podcast.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the Center Square's reporting zeroes in on state authorities publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. The Center Square gives power to the taxpayer by tracking politicians' use of the people's money and demanding transparency from state-run agencies. This is how the Center Square equips you, the American taxpayer, to hold your state government accountable. Sign up now for your state's Center Square newsletter at thecentersquare.com.